ahead.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Jen, would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Corbin.
Here.
Commissioner Zell.
Here.
Commissioner Walter.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
And Mayor Lindsay.
Here. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? I checked it off there. I didn't wonder how I got to it.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no appearances or acknowledgments, is there anything anyone wants removed from the consent calendar?
No changes. I move to adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Seeing no old business, under new business. Authorize the mayor to sign the master license agreement, Cellular Incorporated, Network Corporation doing business as Verizon Wireless Communications Facilities. And on this one, I'm going to ask Mike to address this one.
All right. Well, I guess I will kick this off, and I got a couple of comments I want to say. And, I guess first off, there's a lot of people who have been working on this for a number of years to get to this milestone. And let me just kind of talk a little bit about the agreement and then get into a couple other comments. But in a nutshell, if you have a cell phone, smartphone, a tablet, or a connected device, this agreement will benefit you. We have some others in the room that are going to speak to this agenda item as well, but I want to give a little bit of the city perspective. And today, this agreement is with Verizon. However, it's important that everybody knows and realizes that we offer the same opportunity for all companies, not just Verizon. And soon we should have a similar agreement with AT&T, as we've been working with them as well. So this isn't just an exclusive Verizon agreement. The other thing is that we're taking the approach that this is not viewed as a profit center for the city, could be considered a fourth infrastructure. We all know about infrastructure, our streets and electricity. This agreement focuses on deploying and operating next-generation infrastructure that will improve existing 4G LTE coverage and enabling 5G services and speeds. I think we all know that if we don't have great broadband capabilities, whether it be wired or wireless, we will not be able to entice businesses and improve economic development. And if we don't do that, we don't need many roads, water, electricity. All these infrastructures work together. If you want a technology ecosystem in your community, we need to have technology-capable infrastructure. People start and build companies where they want to live, and broadband is a major force in determining that. I also want to explain about this agreement that it's an overarching agreement with the city. And what I mean by that is we've worked really hard to try to figure out a way to stay away from onerous ordinances for the provider and also for us as well. Everything else, like the pole location, the design of it, and all of that will be addressed through an application process by the utility department and also the utility commissioner. This is all done without having to come back to the full commission each time that a site or a pole is going to be installed. And the whole purpose of that is so that we can streamline and improve the deployment process. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to make these things happen. And we're just trying to eliminate or streamline as much regulation as possible from the city's perspective. Also note that for each one of these sites, we will communicate with Dakota State University to help determine the actual location needs and in case DSU wants to hang additional equipment on that particular pole or in that site. Each one of these sites and poles will be documented and placed in a supplemental or the exhibits portion of this agreement. So it'll be full documented And it's not like just because they don't come back to the commission for each of these sites, we don't have people that are still documenting and keeping track of it. It's important to remember a couple of things, but one in particular is that these companies, and I'm talking about the carriers, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, they do not have to come to a city our size with this expanded technology. If we don't, as a city, incentivize it and partner with them, we can easily be overlooked. These small cells are needed prior to the carrier being able to provide 5G, the next evolution of wireless technologies. Without small cells, 5G simply won't happen. 5G technology will enable businesses to provide services we have not yet dreamed of. But I can assure you, DSU students, some of which they're already working on this technology, are eager to get their hands on this and find new innovative ways to help improve all of our lives. Finally, as Public Safety Commissioner, I must mention the public safety perspective, as these small cells will improve the mobile broadband technology for our emergency responders that they utilize daily to protect us, keep us safe, and help us when in need. From smartphones to data terminals in our patrol cars to iPads and ambulances, they will all benefit from the additional capacity and capabilities of this technology. This is a 10-year agreement, and I know City Attorney Jenks has worked a lot with this. Commissioner Corbin and Brad Lawrence, we've been in many meetings and discussions on this, and I think what's in front of us is a pretty good plan and a pretty good agreement. So with that, I'll yield to other questions or comments.
Dr. Griffiths, would you like to address it?
Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. I would like to speak in favor of this item. As you know, we've been talking about this technology emerging. It's not a replacement. It doesn't completely replace 4G. The 4G infrastructure will stay in place for those people who don't want to upgrade their phones. But as you know, we are expanding our student body. We do know that more students coming will put more pressure on the 4G infrastructure. The 5G infrastructure is totally different, and as Commissioner Walton says, it will enable applications that we can't imagine. In addition to being an attractor for businesses to come and locate in Madison, because the infrastructure is in place, and hopefully will be one of the first cities to actually offer 5G services to the citizens here. We know the history is that businesses co-locate to the best and strongest broadband capability that exists. And we have an opportunity to attract a number of IT-related businesses. We're already talking to some fairly advanced IT companies to come and locate in Madison. And they would do that for two reasons. One, because we have a supply of technical personnel coming from DSU. And secondly, because the infrastructure would be right here for them to sort of plug in and go to work. But in addition to economic development in Madison, the applications are very strong for education, improving the kinds of education we could offer, and distance education, improving healthcare, and the opportunities for providing better health-related services directly to the home where people are. You won't always have to go to the doctor. The doctor will come to you. We see applications in the agricultural field as we're moving increasingly to precision agriculture. The need for the vehicles and all the controls on vehicles to be much more responsive to signals coming through the airwaves is going to be critically important. A robotic manufacturing, we're saying robotic agriculture. We talked about robotic dairy the other day. Mayor, you were there at that meeting. So all of this becomes capable with the 5G infrastructure. So the infrastructure comes first. If we don't put the infrastructure in place, we won't be ready when the services come out to say, let's take advantage of the services. So this is building the infrastructure so that we are 5G ready, and the moment 5G services start being made available, Certainly at the university, we'll be experimenting with them. We'll be testing them out. We'll be load testing to see how much they can actually carry in the way of traffic. And as you know, we have a strong capability in the area of cybersecurity. So one of our interests is how do we secure that environment for the citizens, for your data, for your privacy. And that's something that we in particular will be focused on in our research initiatives through the Madison Cyber Labs. So I urge you to move forward with this. We believe that if we do move forward, we could become the first small city in the United States to have full coverage of 5G, and we could become the model that the 86% of cities in the United States that have fewer than 10,000 population would look to us as the demonstration city for 5G. Thank you for your attention.
And
Very good.
Before you go, Dr. Griffiths has obviously worked on this for many years, and we've been in many meetings and discussions on it. And this is a huge milestone, and she has talked a lot about trying to be a model city for 5G, and I think this agreement, we have shared this agreement with other municipalities across South Dakota, and obviously it's a public document. Anybody can grab a hold of it, and I think it does really show a good model. Now, some of our larger cities, they like a lot of ordinances, they like a lot of rules and regulations, and I also know of some other cities across the nation that these major carriers, because of so much difficulty with red tape and regulations, they have backed away, and they have moved, and these are big cities. And so I hope that this agreement can also be a model agreement that we can, at least this is one method that they can maybe go with and look at and use, and I hope it's an innovative way of thinking that we incentivize it for these companies to be able to come to our community, because as we all know and understand, this is the next infrastructure and it's the next need. So,
And just to add a little to that, and that in one of the tours of the town, it would take at least nine locations to really make Madison, 5G capable. And each of those locations costs $1 million a piece plus to build. So these companies in that are looking at that from an investment standpoint as well. They want to be able to get a return on their money where they put their investment in. This also does not eliminate the current, towers and that we have in town, because these small cells don't reach as far as the large cells do. That's why it takes more placement within the city to get the direct connection and direct speed when you go with the small cells. So, Mr. Corbin,
Were
you
you
worked
going to
on
say
this
something,
too?
Commissioner Waldner?
I'm just going to tack on to that just a little bit. The location of these small cells are in high volume areas, high volume of cell phone usage, where people gather. For example, the Art in the Park. When that happens, you have all the vendors that are using their cell phone connections to run credit cards, and it overwhelms and congests the capabilities, if you will, of the current infrastructure for our cell phones, and these small cells will help eliminate that congestion. So,
This is especially timely for the utilities because we have a number of networks we utilize to run our water and electric systems. Essentially, right now there's roughly 5 applications that we use right now that could easily go on 5G, and then down the road there's probably 3 more, because we have our water SCADA network, which is supervisory control and data acquisition. That's what we utilize to monitor and run the water plant and the network. And then the electric department has its own SCADA network that both of these could easily someday go into a 5G. And then our load management system, as we go forward into the smart grid, that could certainly use 5G. And that would help us as consumers in our community save money on our electric bills. So there's some exciting things going on there. And then our water meters and electric meters both, we could go to AMR, which would we'd hit a button at the office and it would collect all that data, which would help us understand our system a lot more. And again, go down the path of smart grid. And then down the road, as we migrate our streetlights to LEDs, there's a potential where we could network those together and pass messages along to the community. Like if there's something going on, you could have the lights flash or even change colors, and we could network that through the 5G. Or we can program them to dim too. That'd be another network application. And then we're also looking at system security and looking at vulnerabilities. And if we had a larger broadband network, we could put some security equipment out there and intrusion detection for like our electric substations. So there's a lot of potential for the utilities. It fits very well for us.
And without the 5G, those type of activities just won't happen, plain and simple. And it's one of those, also one of those adages where if you don't have it, I guarantee the businesses won't come. If you do have it, now we have an opportunity. And I know Rory was from the LAIC was also going to come and speak to the item as well. And I think he might still be at a funeral or something. But same thing. I mean, it's definitely an economic development driver, like we've discussed, and huge future for us.
David, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not a lot to add, other than the agreement's been thoroughly reviewed by many people. Verizon was easy to work with, but it's certainly acceptable from my legal standpoint.
I think we have an agreement where we'll give them an incentive to come to town, and then going forward, we'll share costs for the poles and whatnot. It seems very fair to me.
Okay, do we have a motion?
With that, I will make a motion that we authorize the mayor to sign master license agreement, Cellular Incorporated, Network Corp., doing business as Verizon Wireless Communications Facilities.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, authorize the mayor to sign the certificate of substantial completion with American Fence Company for the ball field backstop fence. And Mike, did you want to address that, or Chad?
I can just say a few words.
And
about
thank
it.
you, Dr. Griffiths.
Yes, thanks for coming in.
This is a contractual document that certifies the date of substantial completion for the project, and then it is used subsequently for warranty dates and such like that. There's a few punch list items remaining to be accomplished, and we're withholding some dollars until those are done, and when those are done, we'll process that final pay application as well. But pretty simple document, just to document that they have the date they had accomplished substantial completion.
Okay.
So I'd recommend the mayor be authorized to sign that.
Very good.
Can we hook up 5G and have cameras on there and live stream all the games? And
That may be
We're all
possible in
good?
the future. So,
I'll make a motion, we authorize the mayor to sign certificate of substantial completion, American Fence Company, ball field backstop fence project 2018.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, authorize the mayor to sign task order number 5, DGR Engineering, 2019 Electric Distribution Conversion Project. And Chad, you want to address this one?
I can say a few words, yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Brad, Mr. Lawrence Brad, Utility Director Lawrence, has coordinated with DGR to identify the next phase of work for 2019, as has been the process over the last several years in continuing to upgrade the electric distribution system, generally in accordance with the 2012 master plan that was developed. The costs included in here was a number that Mr. Lawrence had looked at to determine what fits within the budgetary scheme for 2019 for projects, what they would have available. And that was given to DGR Engineering, and we're trying to maximize the amount of project logical terminations of the improvements to get near that amount for a project size. So with that, this is a task order. There's a master agreement that had been approved previously. Approving this would just to approve the work set forth for those previous discussions.
Just a
Mr.
step in the
Corbin?
process that we've been doing for a number of years and have quite a few years left, so I guess it's part of the budget we approved. Where am I at? I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign task order number 5, DGR Engineering 2019 Electric Distribution Conversion Project.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Authorize the mayor to sign the consultant agreement, Dakota State University intramural coordinator. Jen, would you want to address this one?
I can. You have in front of you the annual consultant agreement with Dakota State University. This agreement provides for a .50 FTE, 9 months worth of service to Dakota State as their intramural coordinator. That service is provided by our current rec coordinator, who is Mr. Lakin Negerbauer, for reimbursement to the city from DSU up to $25,000. We do bill that out to them on a per semester basis. Agreement as in front of you mirrors last year's agreement at $25,000 as remained suffice.
Questions or comments? Not? Do we have a motion?
Move to authorize the mayor to sign the consultant agreement with Dakota State University for the intramural coordinator.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 5, authorize the mayor to sign the letter with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for Section 22 Planning Assistance to States Program. Chad, would you address this, please?
Yes. Included in the agenda packet is the letter of request to the Corps of Engineers to look into what's referred to in the letter as a PAS study. I've also handed out another document called the Section 22 Planning Assistance to States and Tribes. That's where your PAS comes from, Planning Assistance to States. This would be I would refer to as a phase 2 of Section 22 study. And why it would be a phase 2 is back in 2014, the commission partnered with Lake County to accomplish a Section 22 study that was expanded beyond the city limits at that point in time. The city and the county joined forces at that time because a significant part of the study was outside city limits. And at that time, that study was more so intended to update the models and rather than look at alternatives. And that was a recommendation of the Corps at that time. Originally, there was an LAPC subcommittee that was formed after the flood event in 2012 that wanted to both update the model and look at some alternatives. Some of those alternatives were ones that were originally identified in the 1995 Banner study following the 93 flood. As I mentioned, it was broken down to just updating the models at that time. And then in 2016, the Corps came and gave a presentation to the City Commission of the findings of the report. So it had been a couple years since we revisited that. Mr. Corbin and others have talked to me and such about trying to talk about this again. You know, is this time to relook at this, look at some of these alternatives. You know, the most significant one would be a large dam on the north side of town that was looked at years ago. And then there's some replacing the railroad bridge is another one. And maybe a series of, in combination with the single large dam north of town, maybe a series of dams north of town. And so those were identified by that LAPC subcommittee. They were talked about in this phase 1, section 220, section 22 study, but now we're the recommendation, and we've collaborated with the Corps, some staff there, on their opinion what might be a good step forward if the city wanted to proceed, and they thought it might be good to pursue this version, section 22. There's another version out there. It's called a section 205. That's probably not the best fit because that's more equipped for construction and getting Corps funds actually for construction. So they had recommended, if we're going to proceed, to try to pursue this phase 2, identify some alternatives, look at those closer, see if they're feasible, and then should the commission or the city want to proceed at that time, we could use some of those funds for that, and then you could look towards potentially some construction, some cost funds that may be available from the Corps at that time. So I would describe this as just another step in the process. The commission did talk about this this was talked about in 2017 and put into the budget for 2018. If I recall correctly, it's $50,000 is put into the budget for this. Some of that was reserved that had been put in over time, and so it's a 50-50. If it ends up that the cost for the Corps' efforts is $100,000, then the city would pay 50. If it's 80, we'd pay 40, something to that effect. So what this letter does, it just asks them, initiates a request, and then we would start a dialogue with them and try to identify a scope of work, and that could include it would include certainly staff and probably at least one commissioner, maybe 2 members of the commission, to work on a scope of work to further hone in on what exactly we're going to do with this study. So you're only making a request at this time. There would be a subsequent effort to identify that scope of work I just mentioned, and then a subsequent agreement where you're actually signing on the dotted line, so to speak, and saying, we estimate this thing's going to cost whatever, $40,000, $60,000, $100,000, and then we would pay them up front. As I recall, the county entered into the agreement with them last time. We'd pay the cost up front, and then if it costs less on a per hourly basis, we get reimbursed some. If it costs more, we would have to come up with more. That we should be able to know what the costs might be, certainly with the development of the scope of work, at that time. So it's hard to say right now. I think 50,000 is a pretty reasonable number. That's some of the feedback the Corps has given me as we've been talking about this. Typically these, and even in this literature, typically these range from $25,000 to $100,000, and so that's what we believe this may be as well.
That 50, if I can add to that, $50,000 was re-requested in your 2019 budget, assuming that wasn't going to happen here in 2018. It's in the 2019 budget too, for that same $50,000.
Well, and as our experience in the past, we start this now. It's going to be 2019, before anything really materializes in that, and then 2020, 2021, 2022 before anything would be actually accomplished.
Yeah,
So it's like Mr. Corbin said, it's step 2 and another step forward in all these processes and that we do.
After the 2012 event, my recollection, many people wanted us to look into what can be done to try to protect their property and to reduce flooding in town. And so slowly we've been going through this.
And then every step that we can make in that process, anyone that has to pay flood insurance benefits, because the more we can lessen the flood chances, the lower the premiums are for those people that have to buy flood insurance.
If we can accomplish this study, and part of that may be down the line, but if we can accomplish this study and implement an improvement, that wouldn't in and of itself change the flood maps to reduce the flood insurance. However, a step can be to update the flood maps as part of the study using the products of the study to do that. And in that case, flood insurance would go down, the floodplain would shrink and such like that. But that also is several steps down the line. So that is a true statement, but there's still further steps for that.
Down the road, exactly.
If we want to proceed. this is just to see if it's feasible and what kind of costs it might be. And then there'll be some other big decisions based on that. You don't know until you kind of see what the feasibility is.
I kind of liken this to an airport project. I mean, they take years before you finally get to the end, but Chad and I had talked about maybe delaying it because he has a pretty heavy workload coming up next summer, but then we were trying to figure out when we'd fit it into the schedule, and we're like, well, we might as well start it now because it's going to be a while before anything comes to fruition. And then back in 2017, when we put it in the budget, I believe originally we were going to put a $5,000 in a reserve, and I talked to everybody into just paying for it, and I'd hoped to find some grant money, and I'm going to talk to Chad and see if we can find some partners. I doubt the county would be interested, as they've got other priorities, but there's some other people, some other entities I think we might be able to get a little money out of, so I'm going to talk to Chad about that. We'll see.
As far as the workload, I can't see the workload getting any lighter with Washington Avenue next year and whatever happens in 2020,
We have that RD project, and that'll take probably 3 years, and some of it's going to be next summer. Next summer's going to be really busy, but it is what it is. We can keep coming up with excuses not to do it, but I think it's something we should do, so.
If we don't get on the radar now and just.
It'd be really nice to actually come up with something and reduce that floodplain.
Having been through the 93 flood and the 2012 event, I mean, we owe it to our citizens to continually look for ways to mitigate flooding. We're not going to stop it, and we've been pretty vocal, or at least I have, to people whenever I talk to them, is, if you're in the floodplain, protect your own equipment. That's ultimately the city. We can do what we can, and we will try to help as best as we can, but it will flood again. I mean, it will happen again. If we can mitigate it to some extent, and these studies is one of the steps in order to do that.
Agreed.
And if we were going to go for grant money, we'd have to have the study to show.
Well, I'm
The grant.
kind of like to find
The
a
grant.
partner to help us pay for the study too, but yeah.
No, understood. But I mean, if we were going down the road and saying, we really want to protect Madison, they're going to say, well, what have you done that's going to show what's going
Right.
to work?
The Corps would be the best part, and the Corps of Engineers would be the best partner for that, and we need to go through these steps to be eligible for the grant money, so.
Very good. Other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we authorize the mayor to sign letter, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Section 22, Planning Assistance to States Program.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution number 2018-27, authorize the mayor to execute and file an application for Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. And Chad, is this one you want to address, or is this one Mike wants to address?
We're going to defer to Mike and Kristen, please.
Okay. Very good.
So basically, it's the land and conservation grant for the Memorial Park Playground is what we're authorizing to send our application off. The deadline's October 31st.
What are you thinking about doing there?
Huh?
What are you thinking about doing?
Well, we want to make it anything after 2010 has to be ADA accessible, so everything's got to be new ADA accessible playground, improve the playground equipment, new features, structures, stuff that isn't from the 1960s anymore. And we decided, the park board advised us that they'd like Memorial Park since it's centrally located. We came here, I think we were here earlier, but the park board advised that they wanted Memorial Park as the playground to improve, and then we're going to piggy it with the Walmart grant that we received this summer, and along with that, hopefully some grant money from the state. And Kristen and Roxy and Jen and all them have been doing a lot of work on the application aspect of it.
And October 31st is coming up rather quickly.
Yeah.
So, I think we've all been involved in this at one time or another on the discussions and that, and in the equipment and that has been looked at. So it isn't something that's new in front of us right at the moment. But is there anyone that has any other questions?
We probably shouldn't table it then, right?
Yeah.
Please, no.
Yeah, we'll get them response, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, definitely, whenever we can improve our parks is awesome, and I
Yes.
agree with the park board. I mean, that's centrally located, it's used quite a bit, so. I'll make a motion to authorize or approve resolution number 2018-27 to authorize the mayor to execute and file the application for Land and Water Conservation Fund grant.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 7, consider the sidewalk committee recommendations for 2019 assessments. And Chad, thank you. Chad, would you want to address this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor and Commission. Included in the agenda packet are the minutes from the Sidewalk Committee meeting on October 10th, 2018. As is customary, they reviewed some maps of the town of where sidewalks are located and came up with recommendations of areas to consider for installing new sidewalks next year. The minutes indicate the recommended areas that they have provided. I've also produced a map that you all have it put on your desk. There's also a copy here for anybody who would like to look at one. And what I've tried to illustrate on the map is these locations, these 7 locations. I'll try to be brief, very brief. In summary, there's the lines. You'll notice the red lines on here. Those show the recommended areas. Basically, there's 5 different routes or sections where there's various missing sidewalks on both sides that are included in the recommendations. Along where these lines are, we accomplish ADA improvements with those to make compliant ramps. And that is what utilizes some of the funds that has been allocated traditionally from the City Commission for these projects, and that's actually what limits the size of the project. About $40,000 is what the number has been for probably the last 5 years, maybe 4, is what they've selected. And so when the Sidewalk Committee makes this recommendation, I review the sites, do a preliminary inventory, and try to estimate how many areas or what can be done before we run out of money, essentially, how many ADA ramps we can do. And that's what you see here in red, the red lines. The first and second recommendations are not lines. Those are what you see as red X's, basically. Those are areas that had been selected in 2017, where each particular lot where this X is, in 2017, the Sidewalk Committee recommended to put the sidewalk in on both sides of the corner lot. As you may recall, we don't put them in consecutive years or the same year to alleviate some of the burden for landowners. And so we're coming back to these that weren't put in 2017. 2018 was a year off, so to speak, and then this year would be the completion of that. There's one area, and we're near the elementary school within 2 blocks of it. There you can see the location there. There's one location within 3 blocks because they expanded the high school, mid-high school to the 3-block range. And then there's one X there, one location there. And then over near Bachman Park, there was 2 locations that had corner lots where those 2 X's are. And those combination of those X areas and these lines shown on the map, the red lines shown on the map, constitute Sidewalk Committee's recommendations, and then the city's burden for about $40,000 to put in the ADA ramps in those locations. So at this particular meeting each year, you would look at these, hear about the presentation about these areas, and you could reject, accept, modify these recommendations, and then direct my office to prepare a resolution of necessity following that typical process. That process, as you may recall, is we create the resolution, we give landowners the notice ahead of time. They can come in and voice their, any question, answer any questions, voice any concerns, and then at that point, around at that time is when you decide if you officially want to make it a binding requirement, if you will, for them to put those sidewalks in at that time. So at this meeting, as you've probably seen in the notes, I believe it should be noted that Mr. Corbin was there and Mayor Lindsay. That's my attempt to summarize the discussion. If you have anything to add, I would defer to you as well, but that's all I would have, and I'd be ready to answer any questions.
No, I think you explained it very well.
Just another tangent off that conversation. With the rural development project, we'll be addressing a number of those non-ADA compliant corners because it's federal funding. So that was a bit of a conversation we had with the sidewalk committee as well, because over the past few years there's been some we've skipped in the school areas on the east and west sides. On the north part of town, we'll be picking up several of those.
As part of that project.
Yes.
The federal law is that if you're working and even doing a resurfacing project, not chip seals, but even just resurfacing, not necessarily reconstruction,
Right.
it says you're supposed to make the ramps ADA compliant.
Okay.
And so it's all cost is relative, but it's not an insignificant amount. You're talking probably in the range of $2,000 to maybe $5,000 per quadrant of an intersection. So now you're talking $8,000 to $20,000 per intersection just to make those ramps compliant. And as Commissioner Corbin had mentioned, there'll be a significant amount of work in some of these areas that don't have compliant ramps. But that's good. That's how we
didn't waste money that way by
That's a great
doing
thing.
them a few years ago and now redoing them.
Right.
This one red X in the northwest part of town, that guy came and talked to us here a year ago or 2 years ago. How long extension did we give him before?
That's good.
My
question.
My memory is that we gave him 2 years. It was more than 1 year. But I want to say that, if we go back to our notes,
That's my recollection as well. But
one of his concerns in that, is that he also is not connected to the city sewer. Because there is not a sewer line right there. The house to the north of him has a lift station and a 2-inch pipe that travels approximately 2 blocks to make a connection to the city sewer system. And so one of the things that we discussed and that dealt with that. Since then, he has retired, and my understanding was taking care of a parent, and I can't remember if the parent is still, I think the parent passed. So he's in Madison part-time and he's not in Madison part-time, so, but he had, he had some concerns there, and we gave him, I know it was more than 1 year, and I want to say it was possibly 2 years, before he put the sidewalk in that is showing on there, going east-west.
If I remember right, he was talking about hardship that night, and I don't want to have to come back, and if the time is not up for him to do that, we need to work with him, but I would think that the time would be up, and I couldn't see where there would be a hardship, but I just want legal advice.
Sure. And, what we do tonight, we'll put the information out there, and he'll have that ability to come back in and address us before,
Okay.
This is just the preliminary plans moving forward. not necessarily, exactly what all is going to be done. So,
You're really just trying to be comfortable enough with what you see to direct the city engineer's office to prepare the resolution.
yes,
You'll have to consider this again for a vote.
yes.
What do we, do a motion to accept sidewalk committee recommendations?
I'd acknowledge it.
That, and then sometimes I believe you include and direct my office to prepare the resolution. I think that's what's been done as well.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge sidewalk committee recommendations for 2019 assessments and then direct you to do what you need to do.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. See you before you sign. Okay. Those opposed? All right, we do have, okay, public comment. Marshall, would you like to step forward, please? And thank you for filling this out. It happens rarely, but thank you.
You're welcome. First of all, I have to apologize. I got a cold at the last DSU football game, working the chain. So if you didn't catch anything or you didn't hear anything, just let me know. First of all, I want to just say the two issues. I know you guys have talked about a new police department. I know the sheriff's department is looking at a new jail. Both are needed. I know the police are need some more room, and the sheriff, the jail needs a new jail, no doubt about it. But there is always a but. I know we talked about it last meeting that the city and the county was going together, and you made it known that we had some people on the committee from the city that talked with the people from the county. And there were some issues that weren't resolved. I just feel at this point in time to burden the taxpayers with additional where we can merge together, be together with them in one building instead of building two separate ones. I'm not for sure if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but I was just curious, what were some of the issues that we couldn't resolve on it?
Okay, from the mayor's standpoint, I was not on the committee, so I'm not one that could answer that.
Who was on the committee, do you know?
Myself and Commissioner Corbin.
Okay. And, but, you know, they had a number of meetings, you know, and both departments, people view doing the same thing, going out, protecting the public, you know, making the arrests or whatever is necessary, and that. They work together very, very well.
Right.
But, you know, there is some differences in how the city police department operates and some difference in how the county operates. And like I said, I was not involved and was not, you know, privy to the discussions. But, you know, I'll open it to these gentlemen if, you know, to whatever they want to say. But at this point in time, and that we do not have any plans on building a new police department. We will look forward, and I'm going to speak for myself, not the commission right now. I am going to look forward to see what you know, what the citizens' feelings are. I personally feel that the facility that has been designed will allow not only the Lake County taxpayers to help pay for the building, but adjoining counties.
Right.
When I did visit with the sheriff on the sizes of the cells, he said that they're 6 foot by 8 foot. So, you know, some people say, well, 70 or 72, whatever the number is too many. Well, if you're only taking off 6 feet of the building, you know, to take off 2 cells, your costs really aren't going to change much.
No.
You know, and so I view it and look at it from the standpoint that those extra cells that may be on there above and beyond our current needs, which are 30-some, those are generate income from the neighboring counties, Moody County, Minor County, Brookings County, even Sioux Falls. So in my own estimate, downsizing it in number of cells isn't really going to make much difference in the cost of the facility.
No, and I agree with
But
you.
it will, help, the local taxpayers, Madison, and, the Lake County residents, help pay for the building. So, I'm going to, open it up.
You know,
for
the
other-
county needs a new building for their needs, and we are gonna need something different for our needs. Our needs don't quite match up perfectly right now. I think the world of Sheriff Wahlberg, and I think he's doing what's best for our community, and Chief Myers, looking to do the best for our city police forces. It just didn't work out this time around, but they're doing what's best for the county.
And like I said, I don't disagree that we need a new police department. I don't disagree we need a new jail. It's just, we're going to get hit twice if both plans go through. And not saying you guys are going to go out and build a new police department in a year or two, but they're a 20-year, if they go through, that's 20 years for paying on taxes. And then if you guys come along even, let's say 8 years down the road, I mean, the taxpayers are going to get hit for that again.
Well,
on
the
that.
other thing too is if you look at the size of our police department, there's no comparison. Our police department is up here in what, a 20-foot wide by 30-foot long. I mean, so it's not like the city's going to build anything anywhere remotely close. Even if the city did, and like I said, we don't have any plans to do that. The idea is that if they're going to build one, it would be nice to have the two in the same facility.
Right, and that's a great idea. I was just curious what the issues were, if we can hammer them out and still go out there.
Yeah,
To me-
I wasn't part
I
of
think the
that.
county's proceeded without us.
Yep.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
but thank you for asking, and
Yep.
again, my personal opinion is that what they have going forward is definitely the thing for the
Oh,
future.
yeah, I agree too. You don't want to build it too small and 3 years down the road regret it. So.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Okay, seeing no announcements, no executive session, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.